So I've been making Magic content on this channel for a little over a year at this point, beginning last August, and I took a break kind of during the summer months here. And during that break, I was able to take a step back and was able to look at the whole MTG YouTuber genre as a whole, and was able to look at it critically from a viewpoint of not just a consumer of said content, but also as a creator. And before I got too deep into what I was talking about, this video was actually, even though I have thought about making this video for a while, I've just been kind of putting it off to the side. It was inspired by this other channel who follows me on Twitter, and I happened to see this video on my Twitter feed, so I checked it out. His name is Prophets of Isvan. I'll leave a link in the description down below for you all to check it out. He provides pretty good commentaries for Magic the Gathering, and I feel like those of you who like me and how I discuss the game, I feel like a lot of you will also enjoy him as well. This is something that I've wanted to discuss on my channel for a while, but I didn't really know what I wanted to say exactly. That is until recently, Cybenlore, or EtherHub as most of you will know, was just posting on Twitter for the past like month or so, just like how he's also been kind of like down in the dumps like how I was earlier in the year, and I was able to relate to that. And so I was paying attention to his tweets, and he just seemed like he was just getting burned out by like a lack of sponsors and a lack of recognition and stuff. And you know, when you put when you put a moderate amount of effort into a channel and you don't really see leaps and bounds in terms of growth or success, it can eat away at you. So that was a really interesting perspective that I was able to take a look at, mostly due in part to me, you know, taking a step back and slowing down my content creation and like looking at all of my peers and just paying attention to other people and how they're acting. And it's really interesting to see that other people are kind of going through the same thing. And I think this all kind of has to relate to, well, YouTube has been going through a lot of troubles lately. And as a result, some people like Cybenlore have also been able to, or not been able to, but have felt the repercussions of those events. And how a lot of other YouTubers were able to recover from the adpocalypse was the inclusion of sponsors. I don't know if any of you have noticed, but I have significantly over the past 6 months or so. You know, your favorite big YouTubers like the Manosaurus or Tolarian Community College would go from like one sponsor up to like 3 or 4 or 5. Like, I may be exaggerating a bit, but there has been an increase in sponsored content, not in just them, but a lot of other YouTubers as well, like Magic Man Sam, Command Cast, and a bevy of others. And, you know, no shade against them. Sponsors are great for their own reasons, and I'll go over that later in the video. But this is something that I've noticed has increased over what seems to be since at least January of this year. Over the past decade or so, I've noticed that the most successful YouTubers are usually the ones that are corporately sponsored. And that's not to say that causation is correlation or anything, but it's just something that I have noticed over the past 5 or 6 years that I've been watching Magic the Gathering YouTubers. And, you know, there's other channels that just don't really make that much content anymore, like Mr. Lubufu, if anyone remembers him. Dariums, he fucking fell off the face of the earth after he started his whole Pokemon channel thing, and he had a really bad backlash in the MTG community. It's really interesting. You should look it up when you get the chance. But yeah, over the past few years or so, like the most prominent ones are the ones that also tend to have corporate sponsors. And I don't think that just because they have sponsors, that's the reason why they're successful. I think the sponsors noticed that they're successful, so they reached out to them and sponsor them. How many times have I fucking said that in the past 30 seconds? So since I feel the need to talk about sponsors so much, let's just go over like the good and the bad, because there are definitely both sides to this coin here. The good to the sponsors is, well, they support the creator. You know, YouTube doesn't exactly pay that much, especially when you have a small channel like Tolarian's. Now, I know he's not a small channel, but in the broader spectrum of YouTube, he's still a significantly smaller channel than another one that would be considered successful. Yeah, he's just about under 3,000 or 300,000 subscribers, but that still drops in the bucket compared to other channels who have like 8, 9, 15 million subscribers. And when you don't have that many subscribers, you don't really get that much ad revenue money. So each video that you're putting out and you're putting a lot of effort into, you're not seeing a whole lot of returns from that. So sponsors help kind of fill in that gap, kind of like patrons from Patreon, but you kind of have to abide by certain different things, because when you're sponsored, you're essentially being an advertisement, or you're a vessel of advertisement for the company and their product. And another good thing to the sponsors, well, the relevant ones for Magic the Gathering, that is, for ones like TCG Player and Card Kingdom, they provide services for people, let's say, for example, like people in a Bodunk town in the middle of nowhere, right? You know, you don't have an LGS, and the nearest one to you is a half-hour, 45-minute drive away. And let's say you're a 14-year-old kid and you don't have the time or resources to be able to do that. Well, that 14-year-old kid is subscribed to Tolarian Community College, sees ads for Card Kingdom, realizes that he can order cards or have his parents order cards. I don't know if he's working or not. He's 14. But you get what I mean. It provides a service for people who don't necessarily have access to things like that. And my point being with that is those kids, or those people, I should say, would not have known about these companies or their services had they not had been a sponsor to people like Tolarian or Wedge. So it's kind of like they both help each other in that situation. You know, Wedge gets, or Wedge or Tolarian gets money from Card Kingdom. Card Kingdom gets their name out there, and you know, the little Timmies out there are able to get their fucking cards whenever they want to, and they don't have to wait every 6 months to where they go into town and they buy all their cards at once. So now let's just go over some of the bad stuff that correlates with sponsors. And the first one is that they build this wall between consumer and creator. And what I mean exactly is what was once a fully independent, didn't have to answer to anyone, is now at the beck and call of a company. And now necessarily that doesn't mean they have so much power over that creator to where they can't voice their opinions. No, that's far from the truth. You can see that in like Tolarian's videos. But a really, really good example of that is Magic the Gathering headquarters, which is now known as Unsleeved Media. If you're not aware, he was in some really hot water about a year or so ago. And as a result, he lost virtually all of his sponsors. And, you know, he was able to recover from that, and he still is successful, and he has other ventures going on for him at this point. But, you know, even if someone is completely sponsored, they're not entirely at the beck and call of their sponsors, but more often than not, they will be influenced by them to not necessarily be offensive or badmouth the companies that are sponsoring them per se, but essentially, you know, just keeping a somewhat closeful eye or watchful eye on them. You know, just don't muck it up too much and we'll still pay you our pennies. However, with having such relevant sponsors like Wizards of the Coast for channels like the Command Zone, it does leave me a bit weary, you know, when I take a step back and look at it from a whole. You know, I see, like, for example, you go look at the Command Cast's newest, their newest episode, or their newest game nights, I think it was. They listed, like, their Card Kingdom sponsor, another sponsor, if I'm not mistaken correctly, like Ultra Pro, so that's 2 sponsors right there. Patreon, which is ultimately a third way of sponsoring, because, you know, you're having your consumers sponsor you technically, or donate or pay, whatever. And then they said that they have a Wizards of the Coast, so that's 4 sponsors. You know, good for them. They need the money, and they have a somewhat expensive set, it looks like, where they film. But at the same time, when you have this much precedence over your channel and you have so many eyes looking at you, and, you know, not necessarily waiting for you to mess up, or they're just keeping a watchful eye on you, you know, it begins to make people like me wonder, like, is the integrity of that channel compromised? Because Lord knows, if you say anything bad about Wizards of the Coast, they'll get rid of your preview cards. But, you know, you can see that there's exceptions to this rule, like with Tolarian Community College. He's not necessarily favorable towards Wizards of the Coast when he reviews stuff. But he still gets product from them, and he still gets, or not product from them, but he still gets preview cards, which is essentially Wizards acknowledging that channel and not necessarily sponsoring them, but acknowledging them. And, you know, as long as you keep it up and you keep up your good attitude, they'll continue to send you preview cards. But if you're like Magic the Gathering headquarters and you still get your preview cards, then Wizards will take a step back and cut all ties with you. Even though I'm wary of sponsors, the YouTubers that I keep bringing up necessarily haven't catered to my fears. I mean, for example, Talarian just released this review, I think it was like this past week or like half a week ago, where he was reviewing the holiday gift box, and he gave that an F. Straight up, just like, F, you failed, Wizards, get out of here. You know, I can appreciate that. But even so, with stuff like card quality, you know, these YouTubers, they haven't necessarily been the most critical towards Wizards of the Coast about that, and that's something that I had a large issue with. And I'll probably throw the tweets up on the screen, but it wasn't like nearly about 2 months ago that Wedge had stated that even though everyone had been requesting him to make videos about the card quality issue, he was pretty much saying that, yeah, it's an issue, but there's no point in me making a video. And then the professor retweeted it and said, you know, I pretty much echo this same exact thought. But the issue with that is about 2 weeks ago, I think it was October 20th or October 19th, somewhere right around there, the professor released a video discussing card qualities issues right as soon as Wizards of the Coast released their own very, very vague statement about that. And that made me take a step back, and that actually kind of pissed me off, to be honest. Now, yes, he did upload that video about a day after Wizards of the Coast had made their announcement, and I do realize that, you know, maybe that video wasn't made that same day and he just happened to release it like the day after. It just happened to be really perfect timing. But at the same time, if it's taking you this long to criticize Wizards for something so apparent and so important to us Magic the Gathering players, only to release your official response to all of this as soon as Wizards of the Coast does, it does look a bit suspicious. I have given myself time to calm down because Lord knows I went like nearly psychotic on Twitter about this because it made me like really angry initially, but now that I've given some time to think about it, you know, maybe it just wasn't as how I thought it was, you know. It's not like the professor is afraid to bite the hand that feeds necessarily, but it was just a really strange situation, and it still leaves me a bit weary and a bit concerned about it. But, you know, as far as I'm concerned, if there's no other events like this that happens in the future, I will just consider this a fluke. But if it happens again, you know, then we have problems. So in editing, I decided to look up the dates of both the Wizards article and Professor's video, and it seems that it was made the exact same day, so it just adds to my confusion and frustration about the situation just that much more. However, that is to say that I don't think success is measured by the amount of sponsors that you have necessarily, or by the number of subscribers or views that you have. I mean, obviously success can be measured in metrics like that, but I feel like success is really measured when you look at channels like Alpha Investments, who makes these, albeit low quality videos. I mean, they're one long take videos of this guy rambling about whatever he feels like rambling about the day, and it's incredibly entertaining. He isn't afraid to back down and say whatever that he wants to say on his mind and bring up like really touchy and controversial subjects like insider trading and scummy like TCG player retailers and stuff like that. And, you know, I have to commend him because even when he talks about stuff like that, he's one of the biggest Magic the Gathering channels in general. And I think channels like Alpha Investments are really the future of Magic the Gathering YouTube. You know, you'll have your Talarians and your Professors or whatever down the line, but I feel like a few years from now, when you have people who were highly influenced by channels like Alpha Investments and Desolator Magic, even though I'm not really too fond of him, he is another big loud voice in the counterculture of Magic. Same with like Unsleeved Media and myself. I feel like voices like ours will let the younger generations see this and understand that, you know, I don't have to necessarily cater to Wizards of the Coast in order to make the content that I want to make. But when you look at channels like Alpha Investments, you know, it's super original content, it's highly entertaining, and he really doesn't do the same bullshit that other YouTuber channels do, like deck techs and gameplays and, you know, openings ad nauseum or anything like that. You know, he's doing these commentary videos and they're highly entertaining. He has characters and he has inside jokes that he brings up constantly, and he's pretty physical in his videos. You know, it's probably like every 3 or 4 videos he's throwing some shit around or something. Channels like Rudy's, I feel like, will inspire others to be just as outspoken and driven and creative as he is, because I feel like he's setting a very, very high bar amongst his peers. If you look at his channel and the views that he gets on his videos when compared to other channels, like comparatively in size or even in double of size, he's doing really fucking good. So that's my 2 cents on this whole subject. You know, this is something that's been on my mind for a while, just thinking about, like, you know, how there's obviously 2 different sides to Magic the Gathering YouTube. You have your more clean channels like your Command Cast and your Tolarian and stuff, and then you have your counterculture content like Alpha Investments and whatnot. And it's just something that really interested me and something that I wanted to discuss, and I wanted to get all of your opinions about it. You know, am I right? Am I wrong? Let me know in the comment section down below. And I think I might have already mentioned it earlier in the channel to go check out Profits of Isfan. He kind of helped inspire me to make this video tonight because I've been lazy and I've just been pushing this video off for a while. Go check him out. I think some of you will like him because he does really insightful commentaries about the game. So yeah, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Anyways, I'm Tasty Snackies. You all been wonderful, and I'll catch you on the flip side.